Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of the Health and Wellness Show. My name is Chabet Birir na kama kawaida, this is where we inform you, we empower you and we inspire you to take full control of your health and live your best life. Karibuni sana to today's episode of this show, and today we are talking about grief, something that affects many of us, if not all of us. Of late, with social media, you wake up and you find news about death. Someone has lost someone, or even you could have lost someone. So we want to talk about grief and how to handle grief and how different communities and religions handle grief. And, there are many forms of grief. Grief can come in many ways. You could lose your job, you could lose your spouse, in terms of a breakup or a divorce. You can even, lose part of your body, an arm, a leg. So all that is grief. But today I want to focus on death of a loved one or death of a national figure. And with me on set, I have three very amazing people who will help us understand grief better. We have three religions represented here, which is very good because we want to understand the culture and the communities from different religions, how they handle grief. Karibuni sana to the show. And I want you to introduce yourselves today. So we'll start with you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Kamal Sangani. And I do volunteer services and I conduct funeral services for the Hindu community on voluntary basis. Okay.
Karibu sana to the show.
Thank you so much.
You'll help us understand the Hindu rights, passage rights into the afterlife.
For sure.
Next.
All right. Thank you very much for having me on the show. Good evening, everyone. My name is Daisy Malinga. I'm a clinical psychologist by profession, and I also have a background I'm brought up as a Christian, and I'd be able to share my perspective on the Christian.
So you'll help us understand the psychological aspect and the Christian aspect.
Yes.
I'll help you on the Christian aspect because I'm also a Christian. Karibu sana to the show, Daisy.
Thank you.
And last but not least,
Jambo nyote. Mimi kwa majina naitwa Ustadh Hamza Khamis Juma kutoka Kibra. Na nafurahi kuwa hapa na tutajumuika pamoja inshallah.
Karibuni sana to the show. And I want us to start with you, Daisy, being a psychologist, to help us understand what is grief in the first place.
Okay. So grief is the outward expression of a loss. And maybe I'll also just give a bit of a recount of what loss is. And I like the way you put it as loss is when you've parted with something that is very dear to you. It could be a body part, it could be an individual, it could be an object, it could be a pet. And I think that's why sometimes loss becomes very complicated. Like, what do you mean you've lost a job? What do you mean you've actually lost a pet? Why are you sad about it? You should not be sad about it. So I think I've just explained what loss is and what grief is.
Yeah. I like the fact that you've talked about a pet. As Africans, when people grieve about their pets on social media, the comments that you'll find there, But it's important to acknowledge every form of grief.
Yes.
So let's now talk about death. In 2025, we lost icons. We lost Honorable Raila Odinga. We lost the popular musician Betty Bayo. And that's now becomes national grief, where everybody in the country is grieving. But I want us to start with individual grief, loss of an immediate loved one. How does that happen and how do you handle it psychologically?
Okay, so when I'm looking at it like in terms of an individual, if you've lost an individual, first of all, there's the immediate emotional expression that you have. At first, it's shock and it's disbelief, and basically we go through some stages. You've probably heard of some stages of loss and grief, and the first one is in denial. I have seen it in my clinical experience. Whenever you break the news to somebody, they're like, no, this is not possible. We just talked with this person. So there's some form of denial where we don't believe that it's really true. And mostly, especially in hospitals, we allow somebody to even go, and that's why you'll see the body will not be taken away immediately. You let somebody go and hold this person, and really you'll see somebody trying to shake them up, like, wake up, you can't be telling me that you're dead. We just talked. And the saddest thing about death, especially if somebody was in the hospital and if somebody has been terminally ill for a long time, they look like they're not doing things, they're not waking up, they're not responding to things. But about like the day when they're dying, they sort of get a surge of energy, and when they get a surge of energy, they look like they're recovering.
And that's
they're
very common.
Yes, and they're asking for porridge, they're asking for things, they're asking for people, call so and so to come, and there's a lot of hope that people get. And then all of a sudden, they're dead. So there's that part of denial. And then the next stage that they go into is anger. And again, these stages don't follow each other in this linear expression. Sometimes they'll skip, they'll go into acceptance. And especially with men, it's very common for them to just go like, you know what, let's just accept.
Yeah.
Let's accept and
move on.
Men are more logic people. Like, let's accept and move on. So like the stages, how they're arranged is, so the first one is denial. Like, I don't really believe this is happening. So the next stage that we go to is anger. And again, sorry, I'll just use the reference of the hospital setup because that's where I work. And in terms of anger, they'd be angry at the healthcare providers. Ni nyinyi mlimuua, you're the ones who killed this person. They'd be angry at people around. You'd even see in funerals, they're like, you know, so and so, you didn't take care of your parent. It's a certain family. So there's that outward expression of anger. And sometimes even anger can go with vandalism and destruction of property. Like, because this is the outward expression of my grief in response to this loss. Then the next stage that we go into is bargaining. So bargaining, we're bargaining with a higher deity. And maybe somebody...
Hamza and Kamal will explain
will
better.
be able to explain in relation to the religion. So there's bargaining. You bargain with God. You're saying, you should have let this person stay a little longer.
We had plans.
Yes, we had plans. You could have had people saying, and they just built this house.
Yeah.
And they just
had
gotten
just
this no
graduated.
job. They've just graduated. They're moving on to the next level. Why did they get robbed away from us at this point? They should have stayed a year longer. They should have had me say, I'm sorry. Especially when maybe there
was conflict.
There was some kind of conflict. So that is in terms of bargaining. You're bargaining with the higher deity to give you some answers and to just give you some more time. Then we move into depression. And so depression, there's now the expression of sadness, of guilt. I should have done better. We should have taken him to a better hospital. We are having a loss of appetite, or some people even have a higher appetite. There's loss of sleep. You're no longer sleeping. There's worthlessness and hopelessness and helplessness. And like, life can't move on if this person is not there. And it's usually very hurtful for people who were around. Maybe it was a spouse. This is where they slept in the bed. And now maybe for a while I don't want to sleep on their side. And now trying to adjust to life without them. And that's why sometimes you'll even see people are like, take me with them. They'll hug the coffin. They'll want to jump in the grave with them because they cannot imagine living life without them. And that's why there's also suicidal thoughts and suicidal thinking. I don't think life has meaning without this person.
Life then loses meaning.
Yes.
I know we are yet to complete the stages. Sasa tuko kwa depression.
Yes,
I think the next is acceptance.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you, and then you'll finish that stage. But let's listen from Kamal and Hamza. Starting with you, Kamal. Have you experienced grief or loss on a personal level, and how did you handle it?
Yes, I have. In 2007, something, I'll touch what Daisy had said. My dad was ill. Well, he wasn't ill. He was due for a regular checkup in India, and we flew down to India, and we combined it with a holiday. So we said, first we'll go to the doctors, finish the necessary checkups and whatever, and then we'll start our holiday with him. And they did they did an endoscopy on him, and also they did the scans and everything. And then we were told we brought it back into the room. I will relax. You go and have your meals and come back, and he'll be fine, and he'll be in the recovery mode after that. While we were downstairs in the canteen in the hospital, the doctors called us and he said, can you rush up? Your dad is not well and he's gasping for air. So when somebody tells you that, your initial thoughts are he's just into that recovery mode. And when we went up, he was surrounded by doctors. He had all those mask, and he had all the wires attached to him. And here comes the denial part, that hold on, here 2 seconds ago when you left him, he was a normal person in the recovery mode. But now here he can't even talk. He's on wires, he's on mask, and that's when you come to the stage of he's not gone as yet, but you're still not accepting as to what's happened and what is happening. And the doctors are saying, look, we are trying to save his life. And that's when you tell the doctors that, hold on, what did you do while we were away, and what did you do inside the theater? So that's when the denial factor comes in. Though he's still alive, but you're still in that denial, already into that denial factor. And then once they were trying to do everything, and he had 3 massive cardiac arrests, and they couldn't save him. And that's when my mom went and said, look, he's only just about to turn 60. We were planning his surprise in the next party. 20 days, and things were done. God, why did you do this? You could have just at least spent some more time with us. And exactly what Daisy said, and I can picture that right now happening to me. But it was the denial. For the family, it's very tough. It took my mom, sometimes even now, it's nearly 18 years now, but she still cries, and she goes, what did the doctor do that we couldn't save your dad? So it's a very long process. The grief, it depends how you accept it, but it also the acceptance depends on who is surrounding you. I pray to God that when you have a loss, you are surrounded by good family and friends. And this is something that I say to everyone when I do funerals. Your friends and relatives come for the first 2 days or 3 days, and then everybody has to go back into their daily lives. But that person, or the wife, the children, or the family who have lost their dear and loved, then they're on their own. Yes. It's like a beehive, right? Once the honey is there, the bees are going to be there. Once the honey is finished, all the bees scatter, and it becomes a barren land. And that's how the family is. And I'm taking another cue here, is what we see is with the Odinga family. Everybody is going right now to Bondo and grieving with Mama Ida. But time will come when the family is just going to be the 4 of them. Yeah, and that's when they're going to feel the vacuum. And I feel, this is my suggestion that I give to everybody, that we should all take time and grieve with the family over a few months, not just go every day and then within a couple of weeks we all disappear. That grieving period, I hope Daisy will agree with me, and other viewers will also agree with me, is that once we all go away, the 4 of them are going to find it so difficult, because they were on Monday they had 50 people at their house, and on Tuesday they have 0. It's just the 4 of them, right? And the immediate family. But it's just the 4 who are really going to feel that vacuum. Because and as Mama has said, that they told her that he's just going to India and he's going to come back. Yes. That to digest that, it's going to be very difficult for her. And that's what we need to do.
Thank you, Kamal. We'll come back to you, and of course you'll talk to us about the Hindu perspective of grief. But let's listen to Hamza. Hamza, karibu sana tena kwenye kipindi hiki. Tueleze, wewe ume experience loss ama grief and how was it for you?
Asante. Naweza kusema hakuna siku mtu anazoea kifo. Kifo kila siku kinakuwa ni mpya. Hata kama familia yako pengine alikuwa mgonjwa, akifa si ati ulikuwa unatarajia atakufa. Lakini ni Mwenyezi Mungu ndio anapanga. Nimepitia vile wenzangu wamesema nimepitia. 2015 nimepoteza mke. 2017 nikapoteza mama. 2018 nikapoteza baba. Kwa kweli huwa inatingiza. Lakini ukija kwetu pande ya Uislamu tunaambiwa ni kutoka kwa hii mchanga ndio tumeumbwa, na katika hii mchanga ndio tutarudishwa, na katika hii mchanga vile vile ndio tutarudi kutolewa tena siku ya hesabu,
Kiyama.
siku ya Kiyama. Wajua kupoteza mke pia ni mzito zaidi. Kupoteza mke, kwa wale ambao wamepoteza wake wanajua ni mtihani ambayo Mwenyezi Mungu hupeana iliyo nzito sana. Alafu kwa ile muda wazazi ambayo walikuwa watachukua jukumu ya kuona watoto pia wakafuata. Kwa hivyo ni kitu ambayo inakuaga ni mzito, lakini imani ya kuweka kwa Mwenyezi Mungu kuwa yeye ndiye na ndio sisi Waislamu kuwa ikifika hapo kuna neno ya Mwenyezi Mungu ambaye tunasema immediate ikitoka tu hiyo maneno ya kifo. Nasema kwake yeye tumetoka, na kwake yeye ndio tutarudishwa. Si tutarudi, tutarudishwa. Manake yeye mwenyewe ndiye anaturudisha huko. Ya pili pia kuna neno ambaye tunatumia na mara nyingi Waislamu wote wanaambiwa watumie wakati unaenda kumzuru mtu ambaye amefelewa. Unamwambia ameichukua mwenye kuleta, kwa hivyo wewe kubali. Mwenye kukupatia ndio mwenye kuchukua. Kwa hivyo ni mtihani ambaye Mwenyezi Mungu anajua vile atakavyo kukuweka ukue sawa. Amepanga jambo. Ndio unaona tunaambiwa, nimesikia daktari akisema hapa, kuna wale wanaosema sasa si ungeniwachia
muda.
Kuna time nilikuwa Kenyatta Hospital nikienda kuona mgonjwa saa 7, ikatokea kuna familia walipoteza baba. Yule msichana alitoka ward tayari kwa ile mahali kuna mwanya karibu ajirushe, kwa kusema alipata kazi juzi, baba ungeningoja ukule mshahara yangu ya kwanza. Lakini Mwenyezi Mungu ndiye anapanga. Akipanga huyu baba angepata hiyo mshahara angepata. Na akiweka kuwa hatapata. Lakini mimi nilikuwa nikamzungumzia huyo msichana na akarudi chini. Hiyo wakati nilipoteza mke, nilikuja kutangaziwa baada karibu ya masaa 1, kwa sababu sikuwa nyumbani. Ilikuwa imetafutwa wale marafiki mashehe wale wenzangu wako karibu mpaka wanipate, na washukuru kwa sababu walienda wakanipeleka mpaka hoteli nikanywa chai. Baada ya hiyo ndio wakakuja kuniambia. So lakini baada muda kama dakika 30 niliona ile movement yao vile wanavoniweka hapa na hapa, nikajua kwa sababu mke alikuwa mgonjwa na alikuwa Kenyatta. Sasa nikajua. Kwa hivyo kupokea nini ya kifo, hakuna siku mtu anazoea. Hata kama baba yako ni 200 years. Hata kama mama yako ni 80, 90 years. Hata kama ni mwendazimu. Sio ati unaweza sema tu kwanza hata baba ameenda ilikuwa tu mwendazimu. Hakuna. Na hata kama ni familia ambayo unatoaga yeye nje kwa kiti anaota jua na unamrudisha, hakuna siku utasema ati ameondoka mimi nimepumzika sasa. Hapana. Kuna ile kama ni mwendazimu, kuna ile kitu anasumbuana naye nyumbani kitakuwa kimekosa. Kutakuwa imekosa. Na kama ni mzazi umezoea kumtoa nje kumrudisha ndani, aote hiyo pia lazima utakosa. Kwa hivyo kupokea nini ya kifo sio kitu. Hata ukiona juzi hapa Kenya kila kitu lisimama. Wakati breaking news ilitoka kila mahali lisimama. Kwa kwetu hata Kibera upata maduka zote zilikuwa zimefungwa, si ati kwa sababu ya fujo, kwa sababu siku hizi hakuna fujo Kibera. Hakuna fujo Kibera siku hizi, amani ile ilifungwa ile tu, yani watu walishtuka.
Sawa Hamza, asante sana, na pole Hamza na Kamal, of course, for the loss of your dad and your wife and parents. Sio rahisi. Tunataka kuchukua break, but before that, Daisy, tueleze, how have you handled grief, and have you experienced grief?
Have I experienced grief? I've experienced grief. Allow me, I'll quickly just say of 2 examples. And maybe these 2 examples touch on
Kamal and Hamza.
Yes.
Okay.
So one of the examples is I am personally a Sabaot. A Sabaot is a Kalenjin subgroup that is located in Mount Elgon, next to the border. I lost my uncle, my maternal uncle, and as is the cultural practice of Sabaots or Kalenjins, is we bring the body home, the body sleeps home, and then we bury it like the next day. That's the normal way.
Yes.
But now my uncle, in his will, he'd written that he wants the body to be cremated, which is what the Hindu brothers do. And it is particularly in Kitale. So they took the body there, and I think even my parents were really shocked. Like,
it is not our culture.
And they were saying, a Sabaot is being cremated. And everybody was there with videos and asking, how is this process going to be done? And then eventually they had a small box, and then that small box is what was buried. And people said this is something so westernized. But what I realized is that there's a respect of the dead person's wishes. What they said, regardless of the cultural practices, what they said is what should be done.
Yes.
Another loss that I experienced was the loss of my grandfather. And my mother is hypertensive. So when my grandfather died, it was, and for me having, like me being the closest thing to a doctor, I needed to stay strong for my mother. And even as I was grieving for my mother and looking at how much effort she's put in terms of the treatment and in everything. And my mom even had a hypertensive attack, like her pressure went up, and I was so focused on making sure she's okay and not really grieving the loss of my grandfather. So that was a little bit complicated for me. And one thing that somebody told me that didn't sit really right with me, and I agree with you, is that he was old, he's lived his life. Let him go.
Yes.
I mean,
let him rest in peace.
Let him rest in peace. He'd been sick, he'd been in pain, so let him rest in peace. That is I feel like it's very inhuman to say those things. And I think in my practice, you need to understand the background of this person, you need to understand the religious experience of this person, and maybe they don't sit well with you, or they are not the normal things. I've heard of the Islam, they marry the same day, regardless of whether the family members are there or not. And for us, we are thinking, no, let this body stay. Is this really right? But if that's their cultural practice, if that's their religious practice, and if that's the dead person's wish, I think that's the best way to do it.
Yes. Thank you so much, Daisy. And you've touched on something that will now come into when we take the break. I relate with you when you say that you felt hurt when somebody told you your grandfather was sick, was old, let him rest. When I lost my dad in 2018, during the burial, somebody came. When they were viewing the body, my mom was crying. And this person told my mom, he was sick, let him rest. I've never forgotten. They were telling my mom, but it got to me, So if someone is grieving and you don't know the right words to say, you'd just rather be there with them.
But you know what we say in our culture, Daisy, is that no matter how old that person is,
yes,
like literally translating, I'm translating one of a verse in our Hindu scriptures, is that no matter how old the person is, they're there to give you that shadow
Yes.
and that protection.
Yes, their presence
of
matters.
presence.
Whether they are sick
yes,
or
whether
old.
they're sick. You know, you come home and you say, hi dad, hi
Yeah,
mom,
yeah.
or hi granddad, hi grandmom. And then all of a sudden they're gone. You feel that there's nobody to come home to.
Yes.
So I know where you're coming from.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Kamal. Thank you, Daisy and Hamza. We are taking a short break. When we come back, now we'll talk about the different religions and how they handle grief and loss. Don't go away.